Well, that's an accident waiting to happen. So today it looks like we're making tent pegs. I'm usually carrying a mixture. I've got steel and aluminium here, but if you're anything like me, then you're forever losing these, or at least coming back from a camping trip -1. So whilst these aluminium and stainless steel tent pegs have their place, nothing beats a handmade natural resource tent peg. Follow me, let's go make some. So we're going to head up the path in the woodland, and in an ideal situation we're looking for some hazel, some straight growing coppiced hazel. So the ideal tools for this little job are probably going to be not much more than a pocket knife and or a saw, or a small folding saw. So here we have a coppice stool of hazel. So what is coppicing essentially? If this nut, okay, so the hazel nut was allowed to grow one singular tree, that's what it would do. But somebody at some point in the historical timeline has come and cut that, probably used that wood for something, and then from the rim or the base of the trunk, the remaining piece, 2 or 3 heads have come up, and this repetitive process of coppicing and then regrowth or regeneration has taken place for many, many years. Hence we have so many multiple heads going on here. So rather than practice the traditional act of clear coppicing, where you just clear out a whole section right back to stump, taking all the habitat with it, I choose in a small woodland like this to take just what I need from around the outside and lead a couple of leaders or larger stemmed pieces going up the middle, maintaining my understory for my small woodland, but also allowing me then to harvest from around the outside edge as and when I need something. And this piece here is ideal for today's tent pegs. First, I'm going to need to grab some tools out my bag. Today I'm going to be using a Laplander if I can find it. This, about 15 English pounds in price, is still probably #1. It has very soft, mild, forgiving steel and retrofitted over-hardened teeth. I've put a red lanyard on it as this one came in green, but you can get them in bright orange. We'll put a little link in the box below to some if we can find some. We're going to be looking to do something called a step cut. So my first cut is going to go down here. What we're not going to do is we're not going to flush cut this against the tree trunk. We are going to maintain and ensure that when we take this branch, we leave this thickening at the base here, the root collar. And as the piece of wood is leaning out this way, I'm going to put in the undercut first, and it's going to go on this side at about this height. I'm only going to go about 1/4 of the way through. The next piece of the cut is going to go above and on the other side. And I'm using the thickness of this piece of wood as my guide. So I'm going to come up here. Now imagine that this piece of timber is like fibre optic cable inside, and when all those fibres align, I should hear that step. And what that's going to do is, my first cut has prevented me from peeling the bark down here and damaging the tree and inviting fungal spores and attack to enter the tree. So that should just come off, leaving me with a step, hence it's called a step cut. So I've tidied it up, and I've now left enough space, and there's enough energy in this root collar. Should this decide to do so, it can regrow another couple of little heads just off of that platform. Before I head back to camp, I'm going to do some snedding just here in this little space. Right, snedding. Snedding 101. Generally, if you have small diameter tree crop like this, you'd have an axe or a small forest axe. You're always going to be working to the rear of yourself, and you're just looking to tidy up all those little branches and bits and pieces. In this case, I'm going to be doing it with my knife. I've just got to be mindful of the 2 fox red Labradors we have here in the woodland today. And it just helps to tidy this up a bit. I think we might keep hold of this important fork, as it could come in handy for something later on or tomorrow. So I'm trimming off the brash. And so things like what to do with the brash is a common question. I don't need it, I don't want it for this particular task, so I'm going to put it together and then I'm going to dress off of the ride edge and start to create essentially what will become a habitat pile. This means that in the winter months, animals like hedgehogs, pheasants and small ground dwelling birds will have somewhere to climb into and to get to, conservationally minded at all times. So I can see about 6 tent pegs in here. Let me show you how I'm going to whiz this down into size and how we go about making them. So one leg in front of the other, open up the saw, hold on to this and saw through here. Okay, I'm sure we could do something quite exciting with this later. We'll pop that to one side, but the focus right now is tent pegs. You've got to think about the fact that these are going to be getting driven into the floor, so you only want enough for your paracord or whatever it is that's going to be hooking onto the edge of these to be above ground. The rest of it could be sunk in. Top tip, in terms of length, you want to be going from sort of your elbow to your wrist in length. No Tilly, they're not for you. They're not all quite perfect diameter, but they are very, very usable. And obviously they are green, they are freshly cut. So I'm going to have to put them through a few processes to really harden them up and make them optimal for what I want them for. The first thing you're going to do is take any one of your tent pegs and give it a quick inspection. Look for knots and other deformities, things that are possibly going to cause you a problem when it comes to actually sharpening or putting a point on either one of these. Ends, I am going to go and choose this end to be the rounded off pencil pointy end, purely because there's a bit of reaction wood happening here on the base of this one, and it will just be a little more tricky to bring to bear into shape. The way I'm going to do this is working over my right hand side with my right hand, my most dexterous side, just in a standard push grip, using the belly of the blade, the first inch coming out the handle. I'm just going to push and turn, push and turn, push and turn. And it is that simple. Take your time. It's not a race unless you're in a serious rush and you're making these on the fly and you're in a genuine survival situation, in which case I would advocate doing this. So take the knife in your standard grip and make the blade turn so that it's in line with your knuckles. You're almost side on. Bring that up to the chest. Bring the piece of work up to the chest. Now using the entire power your back can bring to bear, still hooking in with the belly, I can now pull off much bigger pieces and in a much faster, timely fashion, bring this diameter down quickly, still accurately into a point. Go ahead and finish with the fine strokes if you want to, it's up to you. Now we've made a set of 6, we need to fire harden those tips. The process of fire hardening is essentially a simple one. We just need to drive out the top millimetre of moisture from around this point to make it truly hard. Fire hardening is something that's been used since the Romans were here, lining their fortifications with a huge ditch filled with whole trees which had fire hardened points on them to prevent us from regaining that ground on horseback. The way we're going to do this here is we need to cook this off without the presence of oxygen. These need to go underneath the campfire for about 1 minute, and make sure you keep turning them. So you might notice the presence of a little piece of black char on the very tip of that. That tells me it's right, and it's super strong and pointy. It's indenting my finger. These are now ready for the undercuts to be put in, chamfer the tops, and then we're good to put them into use. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to create that all important hooking on point for our tent peg. You may also notice this is slightly on the wonk, but fear not. Remember, the way these go into the ground is at an angle so that we can optimize that purchase for our paracord to hook on underneath and do its job. Naturally sits kind of like that. There's a big knot here. I'm going to put the undercut in just below here somewhere. I'm going to get my hammer back from the dog, and I'm going to just tap this in about the depth of the bevel itself. You don't need to go any deeper than that. So once you've put this cut in here about the depth of the bevel, What I now need you to do is roll the piece of work away from yourself. Don't pull the knife back towards yourself. Think about what we're doing. It's as simple as that. The next thing we're going to do is place the bevel of the blade just below that cut, so not above, but down towards the pointy end. And we're going to use our thumb to assist. On the other hand, the hand that's holding the tent peg, that thumb is simply going to assist as we drive off those little pieces using the belly of our blade up against that stop cut. And that's what it is, it's a stop cut. If you find you end up with what we call petaling effect, so I'll just overemphasize this, take the knife and just roll it, rock it forwards and backwards, and that should all just come out quite nicely as such. If you don't have hazel where you are, perhaps you're using, I don't know, hickory, perhaps you're using a number of different flora and fauna that don't grow here in the UK. So my question is, will you be commenting in the box below and letting me know where you're watching this from? And what type of wood would you be making this from if you didn't have hazel? What do you guys make yours from? My next question is, will you be hitting the subscribe button to carry on watching videos like this and see what we get up to on this channel? So now that I've got a nice, clearly defined, lovely undercut here for the paracord to gain purchase, it's all about the shoelace test. Finally, we need to think about what happens when we create impact on the top of a pin like this. Generally what happens is all of the energy goes to the outside of the surface and it tends to break up or mushroom. Anyone who's knocked in a fence post will know what I mean. So to prevent that from happening and to send all the inertia through the center of the pin into the ground, thus anchoring it, what we need to do is chamfer the outsides in. Belly goes on the outside and drive off and just push and turn the whole way round. And there you have it, in its simplicity, the basic tent peg. So while this is big, basic and beautiful, for you more advanced viewers, check this method out. This is called the bird's beak. Think about the alignment of the tent peg itself, and again we're going to be coming about an inch from the top and we're going to be creating a cross or an X. Go as deep as the bevel only once again, and cross this over both sides. I'm going to turn this back towards myself so I can get this angle right. Now what you should be looking at is an X shape with 4 triangular pieces. Go from the bottom and take this out, okay, and then run your knife up the side and take out this triangular piece here, but leave the one at the top. Take your time, don't be afraid to rescore some of the lines if you need to, increase the depth. And you'll see I'm scissoring from my thumb off of the top of the blade here. A good sharp knife as always is helpful. You know, working in the woods, you're only as ever sharp as your knife. And you can see this thing starting to come to life now. Forgive me for not looking at the camera, I'm using a razor sharp knife and I'm really concentrating, so I want to do the best by you, the viewer, and me and my fingers. So what you should have is something that looks a bit like this. Okay, you know, something that can quite literally bite onto things and will certainly pass the shoelace test. Let's have a look. Oh yeah. See, for me that bite's really nice and tight. I'm a big fan of this. So you can go ahead and make these rather fanciful, wonderful, low-tech, fantastic tent pegs, or you can work with nature, not against it, and look for the shapes that she naturally provides within the timber itself. Whatever you choose, make sure you are letting us know in the box below, because I want to hear how this went for you. Have you tried making these? Let me know. Let's talk about it. The bit we've all been waiting for. Thanks for joining us this week for a tent peg tutorial. Keep watching this channel in coming weeks for more content like this. See you next time.